morning.
Good morning.
Happy Father's Day. I don't know how much time I have. What time should I finish?
About 2 o'clock. Quarter after.
About 2 o'clock? Funny thing is I can do that.
Quarter after.
Quarter after? That's it? Okay, all right, here we go. Well, okay, so I have a lot of ground to cover, so let me get right into this. One of my favorite childhood memories is watching The Lion King.
Yeah.
Right, that was one of my favorite movies, man. Me and my cousin gathered up a bunch of cans and bottles, went and bought this, and I went and bought this movie, and we didn't own it, so I had to go rent it, but it meant that much to me to watch this movie because I just appreciated the imagery, and there was something about the movie that, though I was young, I could appreciate just the magnitude of the imagery and the storyline. We were blessed and privileged a few years ago when they actually came in and they did, The Lion King on Broadway. George and Judy, I think, stumbled across some tickets, and I was able to take my family, my little babies and whatnot, to go watch The Lion King on Broadway. And as powerful as this movie was, the movie just didn't do it the justice that the Broadway play did. And for some reason in the Broadway play, I don't know about y'all, but when I watched the movie, I always felt like Simba was kind of like, when he was a little guy, he was pretty tough. But when he got older, like his voice was all whack, like, don't tell me how to run my life. Like, anyway, bro. But in the Broadway play, the take that they had was that Simba seemed like a warrior out of place. He had just lost his father, and now he's on the run for his life. And you can see that he's still strong. He's still a young man trying to be a man, but he's out of place. So he's still full of that energy, still taking chances, hunting, but he is a king out of his kingdom. And the whole trick is him getting back to where he was, but his father is the person that really captivated me, both in the cartoon and in the Broadway play. And that's because Mufasa had a very commanding presence. I appreciated the fact that, to me, Mufasa exemplified everything you would want in a father. He had like I said, a commanding presence, an authoritative voice, and he was strong and he was brave. Even when Simba got in trouble for taking Nala out to the elephant graveyard, even the way he chastised him, like Simba, and brought him over, even something about that just resonated with me. You know what I mean? Just as a man, men are attracted to strength. That's why a man's man is usually the toughest guy in the bunch. There's something about that toughness that I want to mold myself into. So when you have a father, to you, your father should be Superman. There should be nobody tougher than you, tougher to you, stronger to you than your own father. And seeing that model really set a standard for me of what that relationship should and could look like. A father is a teacher. A father is a playmate.
Amen.
A protector, a provider, a priest, a nurturer, a disciplinarian. But most importantly to me, a father is a man maker. You understand? His job is to take the clay of a little boy and fashion him into a grown man. That's the function of a father. That's why most people have this testimony, man, dad was so cold and dad was so distant. These things that they say about their father, not quite understanding the function of a father, because even as a father, that's where I am in life right now. And I can now understand why it's hard for a father to tolerate weakness or whining or complaining. My job is different than a mother's. The Bible says in the book of Job, the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I would demand of thee, and answer thou me. See, God even understands that there's a difference in the way that he fashioned a woman And there's a difference in the way he fashioned a man. He says, Job, I'm going to speak to you, and I want you to answer me like a man. That meant something. You see, as a father, my job is to develop and to make sons. You said, well, he doesn't have any sons. I know. Shoot. Right, we still working on it. Right. There's some paths and bridges to cross. But the father's ultimate job is to fashion men. His job is to ensure that his sons are prepared to walk into a world that could care less about their excuses, doesn't care about your difficulties. Either you got the job done or you didn't. That's why a father can't tolerate weakness. My job is to cultivate strength in you. Like I said, a man is attracted to strength. When you become a man's man, that's why how Jesus could show up and attract 12 men to follow him. I don't know how they've depicted him, but Jesus wasn't limp-wristed. He wasn't weak. Jesus was a man's man. That's why men followed him. See, this world is hard, especially on men. And what I mean by that is they don't exercise or put forth mercy towards a weak man as it would to a woman. A man should be able to take care of his, even a woman will look at you and say, man up. Once again, that means something. Have you ever seen a person manipulating steel or banging out, trying to fashion a sword? He doesn't get a chance to just pity-patty with it. The brother has to, he has to be harsh a little bit, but he has to be skillful. But as he beats on it and informs it and he molds it, he takes it, and whereas it was once useless, now it has use. See, we have to respect the mantle of what it means. If you don't respect what the mantle is, you may misjudge it. I'm here to make men. Isaiah chapter 64 verse 8 says, but now, O Lord, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art potter, and we are the work of thy hand. The Father is the potter, and his children are the clay. When there is a disorder in manhood, then there is a disorder in every branch connected to that tree. Amen. So when you have disordered men, then you have disordered husbands. You have disordered sons. You have disordered fathers. You have a disorder in the gender identity of a man. There's something that man means. That until we operate with respect for that definition and respect for that position, then society will continue to deteriorate. When manhood is anchored in its proper place, then womanhood finds its proper place. Amen. Childhood will find its proper place, and divine order will find its proper place. Amen. The reason why is because the man is the head. Amen. Now, if you cut my hand off, that's going to hurt, but I could survive. If you cut my foot off, that's going to hurt, but I can survive. You cannot survive without the head. Amen. Which is why you see Satan trying so hard to disrupt men. That's the thing that frustrates me. And he'll use all types of things. He'll try to strip man from his manliness. He'll try to elevate and make his woman rule over him. And see, now that right, okay, let me pull back. Because I'm going to get to that. Please believe. Okay. I don't care what you have to say about a man. In any nation, if the men fall, the nation falls. Amen. And the women and the children become the spoils of war.
That's right.
You should want to see strong and capable men, productive and intelligent men, humble and upright before God. Amen. This is what you should desire to see. And I don't mean that toxic masculinity. That's like, I'm the man, so you got to obey. That's not how God set this thing up. I'm talking about not toxic masculinity, but manhood. Amen. The mantle that causes a man to love his wife as Christ loved the church. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 25 and Ephesians 6 and 4. He says, you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. This is the man's function. The father is the potter. When he puts his hands into the clay of his children, he has the power to mold and form them with all authority. And if he is so mentally and spiritually underdeveloped that he doesn't know how to operate with respect to this divine authority, then he may end up molding a monster. It's the reality. He may abuse his manhood. He may abuse his kids. He may verbally abuse or physically abuse his wife. You see, the Heavenly Father creates with the words of his mouth, and so your earthly father has the ability to create with the words of his mouth. Right. The book of Revelation declares that Christ will come with the sword of his mouth. So Jesus can also destroy with the words of his mouth, and so can men. We can destroy with the words of our mouths. Yes. There's something about the difference between what a mother speaks over you and what a father speaks over you. We don't know why that dynamic is what it is, but it is. Something about that. Where it takes on a different meaning. It has a different weight to it when a father speaks over you. You see, I have 3 daughters. And the unfortunate thing is I don't know how to impart womanhood into my daughters.
Be your dad.
I'm trying. I don't know how to teach you how to be a woman. My goal, though, however, is that when my daughters reach the flower of their maturity and begin seeking a suitable man, that no mediocre or immoral man will stand a chance. That's right. That by the mercy of God, I will have in my manhood raised such a standard for them that they won't settle for anything less than a righteous, productive, upright man. You know, in the Greek, father is pater. From the root, it signifies a nourisher, a protector, and upholder. There are a few axiomatic premises when you deal with the word father. First of all, the term can only be applied to a developmentally mature male. In other words, a father cannot be a woman. So all my Facebook homegirls wishing happy Father's Day to themselves, God bless you. But all things decently and in order. I appreciate the fact that a woman may have to fill in the vacuum that he has left. But don't touch his mantle. Just because he's not there. We don't want to misplace or confuse men, because when you have women raising men, all you end up getting is men who only know how to look for a mother. That's right. And you've got a bunch of weak boys who don't know how to be men. And so every woman they get, they want the woman to be their mom. They want their woman to take care of them. They want you to burp them before you put them to sleep. They want you to watch over them. They want you to pay for them. They want you to do that. Look, I don't believe my wife wasn't allowed to pay for nothing for my wedding. I paid for all of it by God's mercy and grace. And even when we first got married, Chaz didn't have to work. I let her stay home. That's what she wanted to do. But Chaz is built for the front lines. So after like 3 months, she was going nuts. She had to do something. But the premise was, I never entered into this expecting my woman to take care of me. Every man should have that mentality. The term father is suggestive of a male's interaction with the female. So first of all, when you say father, you know it's not a woman, it's a man. When you say father, you know it has something to do with his interaction with a woman. You don't become a father unless... And the term father is reflective of a man's relation to his offspring.
Amen.
See, you can be a male and not be a father. You can be a husband and not be a father.
Right, right.
Now, there's this thing called stepfather. You can have a family and not necessarily be a father. But there's this word called a stiope, which comes from the Old English term stiope burning. And it's the prefix that we use for the word stepfather, which means orphan. So this father comes and he scoops up the orphan that is not his child, claims him and raises him as his own. My mother was raised by a stepfather, and he was a he was a good man. My grandmother was abused by her first husband, and she had, I think she had 6 kids by then. She had 6 kids. And finally it got to the point, it was like Tina Turner, like, I don't want anything from you, I just want to be free. So she left, and this man walked up and seen a woman with 6 kids, fell in love with her, and like a man does, he put her and everything that came with her on his shoulders and walked with her until he died. My mother calls him father to this day. So just because you may not biologically be the father to those kids, if you are operating in the function of father, then it's appropriate. As I was preparing my notes for this teaching, we're on a series, and I was trying to balance how to approach the series while doing justice to fathers on Father's Day, because sometimes, man, we get beat up on this day. Sometimes rightly so. Sometimes we just get swept up in the hurricane of everybody else's mistakes. And I get it. I don't want to, we get enough of that. I'm coming in here to speak life into men. I believe that God put something in you that if we could just pull it out, it would change everything. And in exploring this subject of fathers, you cannot escape the reality of the fact that God is referred to as Father.
That's right.
So I had to figure out, man, why is God called Father rather than Mother? Why is that the case? Wouldn't it be more appropriate because the woman is the incubator of life? Why wouldn't it be old Mother God or whatever?
Right.
Well, there's some significance to that. Mark Brumley has this take on it. He says the transhistorical significance was not to highlight the fatherhood of God, but the godhood of the Father. That God is a loving parent.
Right.
And so for this society, sometimes we want to be gender neutral. There's people who, there's this thing, there's new Bibles that are being released that are gender neutral, and they don't want to acknowledge the Father, and they don't want to say the sons of God, they say individuals, and they have this gender neutral approach, and I get it up to a certain extent. You know what I mean? I get that. But when you deal with the identity of God, we have to be very careful about what we decide to add or subtract from how he has revealed himself. Say, for instance, that we allow God's gender to be transitory, that he can be a male or a woman. That would mean that God is Jesus' mother and Mary is Jesus' mother. You see, we start treading in dangerous waters, and God is not the author of confusion. That's confusion. That doesn't work. But it goes deeper than that. The characterization of God as Father is not just a remnant of some decadent and patriarchal past, but an accurate juxtaposing of function and headship. Let me give you an example. Mothers are the impregnated, not the impregnators.
Right.
Fathers initiate procreation, while the mothers are the repositories or the incubators of life. Now, we all grown here. even the positions each gender assumes in the creative process is suggestive of headship. The man's position is one of assertiveness and imposition, while the woman's is one of yielding. See, the trick is to get her to yield to a worthy man. There's nothing wrong with signing off on a meek man, but women, y'all gotta quit signing off on a weak man. The Bible says that Moses was the meekest of all men. So you can be a leader, still be meek. I don't have to be an a-hole in order to get my point across. See, a woman, the same way a man responds to strength, so I believe a woman responds to strength. That whole timeless thing, well, why do good girls like bad guys? Women don't like bad guys. They like strong men. They just don't want a weak man. And sometimes the brother that's bad is the dude that like pops his little collar, wears his whatever. Back in the day, he used to rock his leather jacket. He wasn't taking no mess, and he ain't putting up with your mess. And they like, oh, snaps, type stuff. That's all you want. You don't want an arrogant man, you want a confident man. You want a strong man, a man that's going to take care of business. You want a man that can offer you security. That's why I don't too much trip on quote-unquote gold diggers. That's a woman's job. It's to find the man who can offer her the most security that she can possibly get. Now, there's nothing wrong with a man looking for the finest woman he can find, because that's what he wants. But why is there something wrong with a woman looking for the man who can offer her the most security? That is her function, and he should be the guy who provides that for her. So forgive me if she don't settle for your nonsense. Now don't get it twisted. There ain't nothing wrong with falling in love with a brother with a bus pass. There's nothing wrong with that. He can still get the job done. I don't want my woman to be so superficial that nobody's qualified unless they're materially wealthy. Because some things money just can't buy. See, you can offer security on a number of different levels. Once again, if you are a secure, stable man, that's security. If you're a righteous man, I ain't got to worry about if I turn my head, you sleeping with so-and-so. That's security. See, what you want is a righteous man that is fashioned by God, who respects the mantle God has put on him, and he walks in it. That's right. Amen. To acknowledge the fatherness of God is to agree with how God has theologically revealed himself, both positionally and, once again, reaffirmed by the birth of Christ. But Jesus also reaffirms this male or masculine characterization of God by not just calling him Pater, but as Chad said earlier, but Abba. Which means daddy. So I'm characterizing who I know God to be. He said, no man knows the Son but the Father. Neither does any man know the Father but the Son, and to whomever the Son will reveal him to. I have to reveal God to you. And in his unveiling of who God is, he identifies him as daddy. Yeah. Takes on a meaning. Yeah. John chapter 15. Going to read verse 4 through 5. Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, ye can do nothing. So imagine, once again, I love this analogy that God is as that tree, that vine, through which everything is connected. And he said, apart from me, you can do nothing. When we are severed from the Father, and you're a little stick laying on the side of the tree, then you don't receive the nourishment that comes only from the Father. That's why it's so important that in the identities of God, we acknowledge not only his fatherness, but there's a couple breakdowns to what that means. And unfortunately, I won't be able to get to all of it, but let me try to skip through one of the ones that I had, which is the Father of light. I'm working on this text, and as I'm working on this, I got hit to this reality. if you go outside and the sun shines bright in the air, and you turn around and look at your feet, what do you most likely see? A shadow. Isn't that funny? That in the darkness you don't see a shadow.
That's right.
But in the light, you see this darkness following you. Much in the same way that when you live in sin and you live with complete disregard to God, you don't even realize your filthiness.
Oh,
You don't realize that blackness.
right.
But then all of a sudden, the light of God's truth shows up. Now it's on your radar. Now in the light of His truth, you're able to see this darkness following you. And you realize that it's attached to you. You can't outrun it. You can't jump over it. Because the light reveals the darkness.
Right.
So now, the unfortunate thing is, if we can just take the analogy further, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven unclean. If this darkness is connected to you, you are disqualified. So you can't enter the kingdom. But there is a source of light that doesn't create a shadow. Like, if you look at a light bulb has no shadow. Now, what's the difference between you in the light casting a shadow and that in the light casting no shadow? It's all about the position of the light. See, on the outside it reveals darkness. But see, the light bulb has what we call a filament on the inside of it. Especially in the incandescent one where it heats up and the light beams from the inside. Then it doesn't cast a shadow. So long as you interact with God and He's over there and you over here, all you can do is see your darkness in contrast to His righteousness. But the trick is to get that light over there in you.
Push now.
See, that's why God is called the Father of lights.
Yes.
See, on the day you were created, or rather when Adam was created, God put this, like, He is the Father of light. That light means to enlighten, to illuminate. It represents the glory of God, the life of God, the majesty of God. He decks Himself in unapproachable light. It's representative of His glory and His position in creation. That He stands outside of creation. He is God all by Himself. So when Adam was made, there was a few things that God gave Adam immediately as a father. First thing He gave him was His image, thus giving him identity.
Yes.
Second thing He gave him was dominion,
Yes.
signified that he would have an inheritance of authority. Then God gave what every father should expect out of his son, gave him a job. He said, now I want you to till the land and keep it. Then He gave him His final thing, which was a woman. And through this woman, you would recreate the image of God in the earth, and you would give them the same charge that I've given you.
Right.
So here's Adam, with this light, with this mantle, with this charge, that his father has graciously given to him. And we know how the story goes, so let me accelerate it. Adam falls into sin, and you could say that that light was extinguished in him.
Right.
And he walked with darkness, and the Bible declares that the imagination of man's mind and heart was only evil continually. God said that He repented that He had made man. He said, I'm going to destroy all of them. But here was a righteous man named Noah, that God through him was able to save all of mankind. And so man has been walking through the generations without this light. And then all of a sudden, here comes a man named Jesus Christ. Man, it's 11:14.